At first glance, they are considered society's bad people, lawbreakers, who are believed to be a threat to society, to us and to our neighbors. But in many cases, it's never that simple.
At some point you have to understand that there but by the grace of God go I, and we've all done things in our life we're not proud of and maybe just didn't get caught. So at some point, when do we look past the crime and look at the person?
If we would see a brother, a father, a mother, a neighbor, a relative, co-worker, a church member, someone who is in need of the same kind of love and acceptance that each of us wants and needs.
You feel very isolated and alone and scared, really scared.
And for every person who is actually locked up in prison, there are others, family members, who share the punishment.
When a family member goes into prison, a whole lot of stuff changes for the family. There's a whole lot of things missing, whether it's the father or the mother who goes into prison, and the children suffer the most.
We would always play together and we would have fun. Sometimes we would go to the park and stuff.
Jalyn still collects flowers in the park, but she cannot share them with her father for now. He's currently in state prison. There are more than 6,000 people serving time in the 8 county prisons that are within the 9-county Lower Susquehanna Synod of the ELCA. 3,600 more are housed in the state prison at Camp Hill. The U.S. has a higher percentage of its population in prison than any other country. 1 out of every 100 people are currently in jail. 1 out of every 30 is involved at some point in the criminal justice system. So there's a good chance that most people have a connection to someone in prison, yet often it's not talked about.
It touches almost every family. I serve a very small parish, and to have the number of people who are imprisoned or have a family member or a friend who is serving time, it's amazing.
Yet they are the people Jesus was talking about in Matthew 25 when he said, "When you visit those in prison or clothe the naked or feed the hungry, it's as if you are ministering to Jesus himself."
For me, it was a reorientation of my thinking about who's on the margins and how do we connect with those people as followers of Jesus.
Matthew Lenahan recently began visiting people incarcerated at the Lancaster County Prison.
What I've come to discover in my time with these folks in prison and their families is that Christ is indeed dwelling with them in the midst of their struggles and their suffering, in the midst of their grief and in the midst of their guilt. Many of these folks are seeking redemption, they're seeking hope, they're seeking transformation and a new way of life.
Ann Myers sees that in her job as chaplain at the Camp Hill State Prison, where for some of the men here, praise and worship of God are as much a part of prison life as sterile cells, prison bars, and locked hallways.
This is a mission field. People talk about doing missionary work, and we often think of it maybe far away, exotic places, and I was one of those persons. This is a mission field in your backyard, and it is fertile ground. It's amazing what I've learned from the men here who are struggling with faith and wanting to turn their lives around. They're an inspiration to me.
What keeps prisoners motivated, experts say, is some kind of contact with the outside world.
The personal involvement is what has the greatest impact. There's a lot of ministries that send Bibles in and material, and that help, and that is useful, and that's a part of it. But the personalization of it,
someone to talk to.
A letter, someone to talk to, involvement in their life, letting them know that you're cared for and loved.
The Criminal Justice Ministry Task Force of the Lower Susquehanna Synod is suggesting that each member of our churches take one small step toward lessening the negative impact of incarceration on either a prisoner, a family member, or someone who is returning from prison and re-entering society.
Just do one thing. The smallest step you're comfortable with or that you're not quite comfortable with, try something, one thing. Take one small step and get started.
Lots of these families have minimal income, and so the children don't get the clothes they need, or they don't get to do things that other kids like to do. You talked to me about camp, that some were trying to sponsor a child to go to camp. That'd be a wonderful gift. Their need for visitors, for men to be visited. Again, cards, phone calls, all kinds of things. Bibles, we have a huge need for Bibles. We probably give out 80 Bibles a week. And the King James Bible, they don't understand. So we need contemporary versions, more accurate, up-to-date translations, and I'm pounding the pavement getting churches to mail us Bibles that the men can read.
Letters are of huge importance. Letters and pictures. People, you know, we're supposed to be going to sleep 11, 12 o'clock. We get our mail delivered between 4 and 6. People stay up all night hoping they get a letter. Receiving a letter is better than Christmas. It's contact to the outside. It's confirmation that there are people who love you no matter what.
During Catherine's incarceration, her mother found it helpful when people would simply ask how she was doing.
Willingness to talk about it and hear about it and say, you know, how's your daughter doing, or how are you doing? Is there anything we can do to help you? I suddenly had a granddaughter to take care of and a life that was already scheduled. So without people babysitting out of the goodness of their heart, sometimes on very short notice, I don't know how I would have gotten through that either.
They can be there to help maybe with transportation, to go visit. They are child care while someone goes visit. There's so many ways I think that congregations can help to draw upon their faith community.
Members of the St. James Lutheran Church in Gettysburg have a gift tree where members can choose school supplies to donate to children who have a parent at the Adams County Prison.
We put up the branch and have these little items on it that tell people what we need.
We usually serve somewhere between 100, 120 kids every year, and it probably is about 60 families.
Another great need is for people to have a spirit of compassion for men and women who are newly released, especially when they seek to be part of a church community.
They need a church where they can go and be accepted. And most of them here are, of course, convicted felons. Our church is willing to accept inmates, regardless of what their crime is, and believe that in Jesus Christ they're a new creation. Well, they do that.
As the family of faith, we should be leading the charge, absolutely. Whether it's writing to inmates, supporting family members, if you have a business and you can offer somebody a job if they're coming out, there's so many different ways that we can help people.
There's also a need to prevent people from entering the criminal justice system by keeping families strong and communities accountable to each other.
Once a person comes into the system, it is very difficult for one to extricate oneself from the system. It's a very sophisticated web of entanglement. And so I think addressing the problem before it gets to the point where they've come into the system is very important.
If we engage ourselves in positive type activities or faith-based activities, we're not as likely to steal from our neighbor, assault our neighbor, and do all the other things that get people into the criminal justice system.
But the need is to take one small step to make life a little better for someone in prison or a family member.
You can send pictures of a sunset, you can send pictures of something beautiful outside, anything, and it's just a huge thing, and so little effort is needed for someone on the outside to do that for someone.
Maybe the easiest thing to do is to start with the people who are not in prison, but their families. And it may be the same as ministering to a family whose father or mother has died, or an older brother or sister has died. They're missing from the picture now. Or if there's a divorce, you've got a lot of the same issues that come up. A piece is missing that needs to be taken care of. And we can try to do that. One small thing that we can do as we feel comfortable.
Christ's love compels us to have compassion for all people, even those who have made choices that have led them into the criminal justice system. John Jackson spent 14 years in a state prison. Now a member of the Criminal Justice System Ministry Task Force, he says the support of the Christian community while he was incarcerated and upon his release helped him to truly change his life.
Out of gratitude, we change, we become new. He restores us, and he gives us a renewing of the mind.
As a congregation or as an individual, taking one small step can make a huge difference in someone's life, including possibly your own.